sampling framework. The sampling framework, Mr. Speaker, is very critical so that the sample that you take must be a true representative of the entire population. Mr. Speaker, the methodology that is used must also be disclosed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to data analysis, there must be a clear framework, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to declare and say I was not called by INFOTRACK. They never called me. They rated me as the best member of parliament from Trans Nzoia County, Mr. Speaker. As per that rating, I never talked to them. I don't know who did that, but there are minimum thresholds, Mr. Speaker, that research did not meet. Why am I saying this? Mr. Speaker, when I tried to ask the parameters that they were looking at, they said they were using a telephone interview, and they don't even know the respondent that they were picking. The way a respondent of Form 2 dropout, Standard 1 dropout, a university graduate, they respond differently, Mr. Speaker. The most important thing as Parliament, we must put a regulation in place. Because this is a time the unscrupulous business people, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow you'll see a presidential poll in the newspaper because they want to make money. They'll carry out a campaign, Mr. Speaker, for parliamentarians, for people like us who want to be governors, Mr. Speaker. So it is important that the law must be in place that whoever is going to do this kind of research or this kind of survey, they must be able to meet the threshold. If not, they must be punished, Mr. Speaker. And Boni Halwale in this parliament, I remember he brought a law in this parliament, Mr. Speaker. And it is important. Any pollster, you must meet the minimum threshold for you to be able to...
Member for Kitui South. We are getting this 2 minutes. We are getting this 2 minutes. Member for Kitui South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to agree with the other honorable members that this ranking is extremely unfair. I would like to say that we do not understand the parameters that they used. They did not visit any constituency. They did not view any project. They did not check our books to see the uptake of money from our constituencies. So, Mr. Speaker, we can just call this a circus. What happened immediately after this was published is that it was pushed to the radio stations. And it was being pushed in our mother languages so that the members of parliament can be told how their MPs were ranked. I was ranked number 139. And Honorable Speaker, I must say that I was called by a lady who told me that there was a matter that was going to come through INFOTRACK and that I needed to have my constituency branded so that it can be ranked properly. And Honorable Speaker, I must say that I did not give them time because, first of all, I thought it was a big joke. And I would like to say that it would be nice to hear members who are rated number 1 speaking what is it that they did so that they became number 1. They should not be walking out of the house. They are not talking, they are very quiet. We would like to know what is it that they did so that they are ranked number 1. Mr. Speaker, I want to say my final word, that our constituencies are not homogeneous. I know they don't even know what homogeneous means because they are not researchers. My secondary schools and 10 primary schools. Mr. Speaker, this is a big joke. And we would like to give an opportunity to the Committee on Research, on Education and Research, so that these people tell us what they did. Wanatuchafulia majina.
Now, so as if it's a unanimity in having the member for Mwaya say something. Let's hear the member for Mwaya first.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You could listen to this. Last Friday or thereabout, when we were dealing with the issue of dissolving Parliament, one of the honorables, I think it was Buyu, who stood, and I'm on record in this House, saying, where have you gotten this institution? How did you get to it, and how did it rank, and why? I was questioning this ranking. And previously, Honorable Speaker, have been ranked number 339. I was ranked number 8. I was ranked number 1 in Vihiga. And that last Friday, after questioning the ranking, I found that now I'm being ranked number 1. Now, this is what happened. Hello? So for me, What is very important is to follow what the previous speaker, that was Mbadi and leader, talked about. That we have to standardize these institutions and regulate them so that if anyone comes from them, it is standardized, it can be acceptable, and it's for everybody. That will actually defend every member of parliament where this ranking has to be done or not. Otherwise, if we will allow a party of ranking, where Mboko can be 339, sometimes number 1, sometimes number 3. But let me say this, Honorable Speaker. I call nobody. The way I live is that I call nobody. Nobody also approached me. And by the time I was being ranked number 1, Honorable Speaker, I was in a local church in a place called Ebukolo in my constituency. Then people were surprising me, Mboko, you are the best. So I said, all right, sometimes I'm number last, today I'm best, so be it. Thanks God for it.
Honorable Duale.
Mr. Speaker, I was nowhere in that ranking. In fact, my constituency was left out, so I should be the most useless man. I think even because I looked at that list and I saw Dujis. Speaker, I was a member for Dujis in the 10th Parliament. Honorable Mili, Honorable Kimunya, and Honorable Bandi can testify that. So I looked for Garissa Township, I didn't see. By putting Dujis, it shows the whole thing was hoax. The whole thing was fraudulent. But Mr. Speaker, as Honorable Bandi said, relax. I don't think, right now we are in a serious, the optics matter. The optics, politics is about optics. Perception. This thing was running the whole week. I was wondering why Wamchomba was trending yesterday. I didn't bother to read. Later to realize she was 47 out of 47. So, Mr. Speaker, and I saw, she's trending because of that fake thing. So I think going forward, Honorable Khalwale brought, in a country like the US, it's regulated particularly during election, that you cannot produce an opinion towards the election, certain period. But I think this House, even the Committee on Education, should call INFOTRACK because their integrity today is in question. They should come and clear. And those who are number 1 to 20 must tell us how they were number 1 to 20, what they have paid. Then the guy who's number 1 didn't tell us how much he has paid. I have not been called. They should have called me. I should have told them I'm the member for township, not member for Dujis. So, Mr. Speaker, it's the optics. It's not about whether you come back. It's about perception. Because these days social media.
Member for Nabakolo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to confirm that I was sent an email by this. I was sent an email by one person from INFOTRACK called Javin Wanyingo. And in her email, she requested that we meet. Either, I don't know whether it's a he or a she, but we meet in her office or his office in Lavington. Now that the performance for Navajo constituency for 2020 was out. My question, Honorable Speaker, is this. What are we going to meet for? What is it that we are going to discuss? What incentives does she want or he want from me? Meaning, Honorable Speaker, this is a hoax, this is an inducement, this is a wrong way of approaching research, Honorable Speaker. And I would want to shame and say, INFOTRACK lost on this one, and they need to be abused. Honorable Speaker, way forward, I would want to say is this. What they are doing for us is simply positioning the brains of Kenyans in view of what MPs are today. How about if it's in a political environment that the election is forthcoming? Honorable Speaker, this is wrong, and this House should regulate on how research is done, on how matters of comparison are going to be done in the country. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, allow me to join what Honorable Amalo has said, so that we compare and enforce that let the research world be regulated by virtue of good regulations from this House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Budalangi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was ranked number 1 in Busia and number 25 in the whole country. Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm that I have never been called by INFOTRACK, even in their offices. I don't know where they are. In fact, Mr. Speaker, when those things were announced, I was in Mombasa. I didn't know. But I want to join my colleagues that it is important that all these things are regulated, because sometimes they have been misused during campaign times. But I want to assure you that I was never asked for money. I even don't know them, but that is the ranking they gave me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Ndagureti South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to first say that indeed I was called by an individual, and this individual said that I should talk to them and see how we can work on the rating that they're just about to give me. Mr. Speaker, this gives credence to what members of parliament are saying here, that the research that was done by INFOTRACK is questionable. But Mr. Speaker, the bigger question for us as parliament is the fact that there shall be narratives told about parliament out there. There shall be narratives told about individual members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, I think it is the high time that parliament started telling its own stories. Because if we do not tell the parliament story, the story shall be told by someone else. This other person who's telling the story of parliament might not be having good interests for this house. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that I am not a worried man, because before I got into this parliament, I was ranking very badly in all the opinion polls that were being put out there. However, Mr. Speaker, when the opinion poll of an election was called on the 8th of August, I actually was 5 times more ahead of the person who was behind me. So, Mr. Speaker, I think the bigger question here is who is telling the parliament story? And if we are not telling our own story, Mr. Speaker, it shall be told by someone else, and they might not tell our side of the story. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sosio. It was not ranked.
Mr. Speaker, I'm among the members of parliament who are not ranked, together with the nominee number 1. But hearing the members speak their concerns, really, Mr. Speaker, this is a reawakening call on Parliament through the Parliamentary Service Commission to do something about it, in terms of even considering having an internal ranking system. Mr. Speaker, we have also talked about having live broadcast of committee sessions, because most of these pollsters, they only consider what we say in this chamber, and they don't consider what we do in committees where I believe, Mr. Speaker, a lot of work is done. Mr. Speaker, as much as I want to disagree with the INFOTRACK in terms of how members have been contributing, but I come from a constituency that is neighboring where Honorable Mboko Milemba comes from. And I want to confirm that though Honorable Mboko Milemba may have been ranked by default without knowing, indeed, he deserves to be position number 1, based on what he has done on the ground in terms of CDF. But all the same, Mr. Speaker, I think this House must consider having an internal valuation of the work we do on the 3 roles of oversight, legislation, and representation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, because it's only 2 minutes. If you interrupt somebody who has only 2 minutes, surely. Don't worry about that. That's his opinion. But you also, even as you contribute, remember, this came also against the backdrop of some advisory. So it was also meant to excite the Kenyans. So you must also take that into account. Member for Igembe South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for the 3 years I have stayed in this town, I have learned a lot. Mr. Speaker, also me, I want to confirm that I was called, but unfortunately, I was not in town, so I didn't I did not visit them. Mr. Speaker, this House must come up with a regulation which will regulate these institutions so that if it is a must, any rating, Mr. Speaker, to be done, it should be done according with the funding which we are given and the work which we normally do in this House and even in our committees. So, with that, I rest my case, Mr. Speaker.
Now, I think this one was not ranked because he must have been somewhere. Member for Nakuru Town East.
Thank you, Honourable
We
Speaker.
read about where he was.
Honourable Speaker, I want to join my colleague, especially Honourable Otiende Amolo. Honourable Speaker, I think it is important for us to realize that the rankings, I was ranked number 235. And I accept that position. Sometimes, Honourable Speaker, it's good for members of Parliament to accept some reality on the ground. I totally agree. Yes, now I understand from the experts like Chris Wamalwa on the parameters that are being used when you are doing a research. And that now, that changes my perception on what the opinion polls are all about. But I totally agree, Honourable Speaker, what the majority leader has brought, that it is time, a very high time, that we started bringing, we started regulating these opinion polls. And I think it is, Honourable Speaker, in the last Parliament, we had a different opinion when Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta was rated so highly, yet the other people are not accepting, but he finally won the election. So, Honourable Speaker, I think it is important for us to realize that opinion polls are correct and factual at some point, but I totally agree now with the experts that those parameters need to have been said and given a nod for us to be able to understand what are the parameters that were being used. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Members, I think now we can leave it at that, isn't it? Because anyway, honourable members, just for your information, when this thing came out yesterday, I was in the office and we discussed it with the clerk, and we agreed that the clerk is going to write to this company called INFOTRACK to ask them to avail information regarding the parameters used, the people interviewed, and the size of the sample that was done, and the parameters must conform, more importantly, and must have a bearing on the functions of a member of Parliament serving in the National Assembly. And it must be on the basis of the laws that govern the operations of a member of Parliament. More specifically, they should be educated on the functions as stipulated in Article 95, so that those who deal with the national government constituency development fund, they know what work a member does there. Those who deal with something else you call GAF or something like that. I don't know what it stands for, that one. Is it GAF? Whatever, that's something which was, I think the Honourable Tekla spoke about. At the end, if you are going to do some samples, they must have a bearing on those general functions of a member of Parliament. You can't just call people in the streets and ask them, how do you rank your member? Now, this is somebody who is very hungry and has not seen the member, and doesn't know the member is busy serving the constituents in the village. Now, that's the guy you get and just telling you, I don't like him, or I don't like her. So that matter is being addressed on our members. I think we can go to business. But it was fair that you had a chance also to express yourselves about it. And I thank the Honourable Mili for raising the issue. Yes, sorry, the member for the chair of Labour and Social Welfare. Sorry, the other day you were not able to issue the statement because of the business that was there. Proceed. Honorable Mwadi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The following is a response to the statement which was sought by Honorable Professor Jacqueline Oduor regarding teenage pregnancies in the country. In the statement, she raised a few issues which were responded by the Cabinet Secretary as follows. Issue number 1. What measures are in place to protect teenagers from negative impact of social media, pornographic material, and sexual abuse during the COVID-19 lockdown? Which was responded to as follows. From the onset, let me emphasize the role of parents and guardians as the first point of call in the responsibility to protect our children. Government cannot police our homes. Parents and guardians have a huge role to play. The cybercrime units and child protection units of the Directorate of Criminal Investigation are mandated to prevent and respond to cybercrimes, including pornographic and social media. In addition, the government, through the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, has put in place the following measures. A, mapping, analyzing the existing apps on adolescent health and HIV information and their popularity among the youth. B, promoting utilization of existing virtual platforms for health messaging on adolescent health and HIV prevention strategies, and explore centralized hosting of the platforms. Use of SMS or Skiza tunes in partnership with social media. C, facilitating adolescents to develop their own health messages and apps. That is use of website, photo specific to the agenda, and include a link for back office email with officers responding to questions and auto response mail system. D, promoting use of innovations and technology